Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. I believe, like Craig Rochelle has said many times, that when a leader gets better, everybody benefits. Your team, your department, your customers, your clients, your spouse, your kids, everybody. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, locations, and organizations. My goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump in to today's interview. It is an honor today to have Tsombawi Knibye Jr. with us, and I'm so glad that he is here. He is the CEO and founder of Frame of Mind, Inc. That's an apparel brand that's music and video services, and it's a podcast. Through these entities and others, he seeks to help other people produce positive outcomes through mindset shifts and speak in the language of success. He's also a youth mentor, a parenting coach, and an accomplished musician. In addition, he is a husband, a father, and a believer that faith without works is dead. And if you think it and speak it, you can most certainly achieve it. TK, it is so good to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for being here.
Yes, William, thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I'm ready to go.
I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and development as a leader. How did you get started?
Well, it was always been my goal to be a businessman. And when I say businessman, it was me being an entrepreneur, having my own business, doing things. And when I was younger, I didn't know what that was at first. And as I started to go through school and go through college, I started kind of seeing where I wanted to go with that. And initially, I started out wanting to do music, and I still do music today. But music is my first love. You know, I've written songs. I'm a musician myself as a drummer. I've done some production. I'm actually sitting in my studio right now, as you can see. And that was my first love. So I was going to be this big, gospel artist, and I was going to, take the world by storm. And that didn't happen. And so I kind of dialed in on doing a lot of things for my church at the time where I was at, doing some things there. I was the creative arts production manager, as well as being, a musician, singing on the praise team, things of that nature. And kind of letting some of my original music kind of stem from there, and using it in some of our plays and skits, some of our announcements that we had, and started then getting into video, where I started doing video production. And it's the same difference. It's just now, instead of using just music, you're using scenes and, vocals from a acting standpoint or voiceovers, but then you're still adding music to it as well. And so it kind of became the best of both worlds for me to put those two together. And at this time, while I'm doing this, it's not a business. It's just me doing it because I love doing it.
Yeah.
Once I got married, I actually started putting the business into, registering with the state and all that stuff, and making everything, legal and binding. And from there stemmed an apparel brand, which came some years later. And I wanted to do something different, where I wanted to have not just, apparel brand, but I wanted to have content to go behind it. So I started putting videos together to go along with some of our branding that we started doing with our t-shirts. And it wasn't just t-shirts, it was t-shirts, wristbands, duffel bags, hoodies. We're in the process of adding some more things to our brand as well. And I wanted to have content behind it. So you didn't just have the clothing, you had content to go along with it. Also with some original music, things of that nature. And we've been doing the apparel since about late 2016. We've been doing that now. And so from there stemmed the podcast. And the podcast came when COVID hit. And so I've always done like voiceovers for radio, but I've never, been, a VJ, or I never, had my own radio show. People are like, oh, yeah, such a great radio voice. I'm like, yeah, but I can't seem to get on radio except for doing voiceovers. That's it. And so when COVID hit, a very good friend of mine, we have a lot of candid, open conversations that we have just within ourselves. I said, well, what if we took our conversations and turned it into a podcast? Now, of course, we're not going to talk about everything we talk about. We're going to take those core things and put them into a podcast. And we did that. And so we've been doing that for 3 years now. And that's the entities that stemmed out from me wanting to be a leader, is to, number one, be an influencer in a positive way.
Yeah.
Number two, being that I had a voice that to a degree, and I'm not bragging, but commands a room or commands an audience. I'm like, I need to use that voice for the purpose of which I have it for, which I was created to have this voice for a reason. Yeah. And the third thing was that I wanted to own my own time. I didn't want to have to clock in on someone else's clock, or not. That's a bad thing. Just for me, I knew that there was more for me than just doing that. And for me, at times, if you're contracted, you are, but you're not. You know what I mean? As opposed to actually being an employee where you have to like you need to be here at this time, this, that, and the other. And so for me, there's set times I have to be places and do things, but I'm not grounded to their clock on a day-to-day basis. And so that's where the youth mentoring stuff comes in, parenting, coaching to a degree. And so that's how I kind of got started. It started out as me saying, hey, I want to do my own thing. Not sure yet. Went through a few things. And after a while, I kind of put them all together and put them under one conglomerate, Frame of Mind Inc. And that's how we got where we are today. So,
like so many other people, your story is not just a straight line up and to the right.
Yeah.
It's up and around, and hey, what about that? And what about, and what about, and what about? And I love that. How God has used all these experiences in your life, because there's no such thing as a wasted experience.
Yeah.
So you have leadership experience in business and inside the local church.
Right.
How would you define leadership?
So it's interesting because we did a podcast on my podcast on leadership and leading. And so we were talking about how, I took all my experiences and all things that I've seen or been through and stuff that I'm still seeing. And I'm like, leadership is great. I'm like, but how many people in leadership are actually leading? And I looked at it as, you can be put in leadership, but the question is, are you leading people? Like, how did you get there? What are your qualifications? And one thing we said was that there are people who get into leadership because they inherited it. It's a family business, or it's family owned or family ran. And they're like, all right, you're going to do this. You're going to do that. It's like, yeah, but is that person a leader? They might be put in charge of it, but are they leading people to where it has to go? Are you able to corral people together to make things happen, to make things work? Are you good under pressure? Are you not? When things are going bad, are you going to jump ship? And things of that nature. Are you going to is your attitude going to rub off on everybody else the wrong way? Other thing we said about leadership is that, again, there are people who like to be bosses, but not necessarily leaders. And not everyone that's a boss is a bad boss.
Yeah.
But from the majority standpoint, a boss is someone who tells you, hey, do what I do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Where a leader says, hey, let me show you the way, develop you, and then help you become the person you're supposed to be, and then lead by example. So for me, in short, leadership is leading by example, and being a leader is being able to make sure that all the ins and outs of whatever your responsibilities are, that you are showing those who you are leading by example the right way to do things. You're not skipping steps. You're not, shortcutting things. You're not leaving things undone. Like you're finishing. And when you finish, your team will finish. So.
Yep. That's so good, man. That's so good. Yeah. You've been through some stuff. You've had some struggles. How do you deal with the struggles that are a part of every life?
Man, I have learned over the years, and will continue to learn, that number one, prayer works. That's number one.
Yeah.
And any of you out there who may not necessarily believe as I believe and me and William believe, prayer works. I'm just saying that right now. Prayer to the Heavenly Father, it works.
Yep.
And there are times in my life where I didn't think it worked. I didn't think he was listening. The fact of the matter is that he is, but my steps are ordered by him. And so there are things I have to go through in order to get where I'm going. The other thing that I've also realized, and that prayer being number one, everything after that can be any number you want, in however you want to number it. Yeah. But then I also realized that, I had to embrace failure. And that was hard for me to do because I've always been one to want to champion things and not have to, not necessarily fail, but, you may have to go through some things, but eventually you come through and you finish. It's like, man, like that didn't work out. Or this didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, or this here just blew up in my face altogether. Where do I go from here? And so I had to learn and continue to learn to embrace failure. Now, me personally, I like to call them, lessons. I say on my podcast, we have our affirmations every time. And I say, I never lose, I only win. But I also say, hey, you didn't fail. You just had a lesson. Now learn from it. And then keep moving. But if you don't learn from it, making that mistake is kind of pointless because making mistakes, the point is to learn from what from your mistake and move on. So I had to learn to embrace failure. Now, embracing failure isn't saying, oh, let's just all fail and let's just do it. Like, no, like you have to embrace the entire journey. Like failure is a part of it. But I also learn that no matter how many failures you have, that one win you get might be the thing that blows all those failures out of the water. And that's the thing that I'm like, wow, I haven't experienced that yet. I've experienced wins that have made me forget failures. Yeah. But I haven't yet experienced that one big win that's like, you know what? You guys were all worth it. And I know it will be when it happens. Yeah. But you have to walk that journey and be like, all right, I'm going to trust that everything is working out for my good, even though I don't understand it or see it. And so for me, it's prayer, embracing failure, and enjoying the journey, enjoying every day with my family, with my business, with friends, with just the everyday moments that we take for granted because we want to get to the end destination. Yeah. But then when you get there, it's like, okay, then what? Like, what's next? Do you have another destination to go to? Or is this the one you're looking for? And the one thing I'll say before we go is that I always hear people say, start with the end in mind. And we had a men's group this past week, and I talked about how I used to always think the end in mind was, well, the end of my career or the end of my profession. But I never thought about it from the end of my life to working from there to where I'm trying to go to. I'm like, wow, I never thought about it like that. So that's just one little nugget I would throw in there. But, those are some of the struggles that I had and working through them. Prayer, and embracing failure and enjoying the journey.
I think what you're describing is a mindset shift. And you talk a lot about mindset.
Yeah.
How do you begin that process of shifting your mindset, maybe from seeing failure as, something really bad to seeing it as an opportunity to learn, as a lesson?
That is where a mentor comes in. Because when we're going through these failures or these mind shifts, or or someone's trying to shift our mind, we always feel like I'm the only person going through this. Yeah. I'm the only one. It's like, no, there are people who have come and gone before you, and those who are living with you amongst you now that have gone through this. So a mentor, a coach, someone who is able to say, hey, I've been there. Yeah. I've gone through this. This is how I got through. Now let me help you get through. And so mind shifts take time, but they can also not take as much time depending on how teachable you are. Because if you're not teachable, you can't help anybody else if you're not willing to be taught yourself. and you being a leader, a pastor, like, you know this. Like, this is like, you, like, I can't allow you, or I can't help you become the person you want to be if you want to allow me to teach you and help you. Yeah. Someone had to do it for me. And we all have been to a place where we've been hard-headed. We don't want to listen to anybody. We know it all. That stage is called teenage stage. Okay. That's what that stage is. We've all been there. I know what I'm doing until I get into a situation that I can't handle. Now I need your help, you know? And even as adults, we get there too. You know, I'm a grown person. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. And you get to a situation where you can't get out of it because you haven't learned or haven't been taught what to do when certain things come up. So getting a mentor or a coach, whether paid or unpaid, and I'm not telling you which one to get, whatever one works for you and whatever one that, you know, Elohim allows you to have, let that person lead and guide you because they've been there before. And, you know, allow them to help you along the way. It may not be easy, or I'll say this, it's not going to be easy. Yeah. But in the end, it will be worth it if you allow them to help you and to guide you along the way. I would say a mentor and a coach is the best way to go about that. And listen, all of you guys that are, and I'm not bashing YouTube or anything like that, but YouTube can only take you but so far. Yeah. You're going to have to get a physical person to act, whether it's virtual or in person, to help you along your journey. You got to get somebody.
You know, I talk a lot about the teachable spirit that you're describing and how, you know, growth only happens on the other side of change. But if you're not teachable, if you don't approach every circumstance, every situation, every relationship as a teachable moment, if you don't come with a teachable spirit and choose to have that every single day, you're going to miss the opportunities to learn that are presented to every one of us every day. And you're going to find yourself hitting those ditches again and again and again. How do you get motivated? How do you get inspired every day?
Oh, wow. Honestly, my family, you know, my wife and my children, I do what I do for them from a physical standpoint. Sure. You know, I grew up and I'm born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey, you know, and anyone who knows, if you're from Jersey, you say, if you're from New Jersey, you say I'm from Jersey. You don't say New Jersey. So if anyone who says New Jersey is like, no, you moved here. You're not from here. Okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. But no, I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey. And, you know, Trenton is a rough area. You know, it's been that way for, my father grew up in Trenton. He was around when Trenton was like, you know, West Side Story, you know. And so, you know, it was a rough area. And when I became a teenager going into high school, that's when a lot of, you know, gangs, Bloods and Crips were starting to come into the city. Yeah. And it made things even more rougher than what it was. And so I've been through hardship. Me and my family, you know, growing up, we weren't, I would almost say we were poor. You know, my father worked very hard to provide a better life for us. And things didn't get better for us really until I entered high school, where we were able to move out of Trenton, New Jersey, into a more suburban area. Don't get me wrong. You know, I'm proud to be from Trenton. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud. Yeah. You know, it prepared me for a lot of situations in my life, you know, growing up with the hardship and, you know, always having to make sure that you watch yourself and you're attentive and, you know, you're mindful of your surroundings. That helped me a lot in life. And it continues to help me in life. But I mean, you know, as life goes on, you do want to progress and get better. And so those living, you know, arrangements, you know, kind of help me, you know, see where I'm going now. And so it was amazing to me to see that, you know, those struggles that you go through really help to form and shape you into who you're going to be, who you are now currently, and who you're going to and meant to be. It's amazing how my pastor had did a sermon, not a sermon, but he was talking about how we're always, you know, trying to become, which is true. But it's like, but, you know, when it comes to scripture, like, this is who you are. Like, you have to embrace who you are already because the word says so. But then also becoming is a part of that journey. You know, you are who you are, but in your becoming, everything that you are, you become as you go along that journey. And so for me, that was good. You know, just being able to grow up in that environment really set the tone for me mentally because I dealt with a lot of success when I was younger. I was, athletic, I was tall, my good looks kind of came after middle school. Middle school was a rough time for me,
For us all, I think.
Yeah, the pimple phase and all that stuff. And then when I got to high school, just successes became the norm for me. So I was used to having success. And then once, life hit, real life hit, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not used to this. Like, this is a different territory for me. And so that mind shift had to start coming from other people, because I'm like, hey, I can handle this. Like, I got this. But when life, does that, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
And so you need someone to help you along to get that, to get through those things.
So what do you owe your success today to?
I owe a majority of my success outside of our Heavenly Father to my earthly father. He is my hero in life. He is my go-to. I get my work ethic from him. He is a hard worker. He is one who has taught me a lot about life in general. And the one thing about my father, and I'm trying to adopt that for my children, particularly my son, is that I never had to ask my father, hey, what about this? What happens when you go through that? He just kind of knew when it was time for a talk about something, because he started seeing the changes in me as a child, from being that child to that adolescent to that teenager stage. He just saw them. And I'm like, man, how can I do that with my son? How can I do that with my daughter? And so he prepared me for a lot of things in life. And even today, as a father and a husband, he's always there for me to talk to him. I don't talk to him as much as I used to, because he taught me so much. I had like a book to go back to be like, all right, remember we had this talk here. He said X, Y, and Z, and so I kind of had a playbook already, in place. Now, those special plays, I didn't have those. He didn't give me those. So I had to go back and say, hey, you didn't tell me about this right here. Like, what do I do here? And I owe a lot of that to him, because number one, it's highly important to have a father in your life. Highly important. I don't even know where I would be without my father in my life. And don't get me wrong, I highly praise my mother, who was there as well. My father used to drive, tractor trailer, so he was gone a lot, but his presence was always in the house, because, this generation now is a different generation. But when we were growing up and generations before us, if you happen to act up and your mother says, I'm going to tell your father when he gets home,
right,
that's a whole different problem that you have to deal with. And I don't care how long he was gone. When he got home, he remembered that his wife, who was my mother, told him what I did or did not do. And so, it wasn't a fear factor. It was a respect factor, where it was a reverence, where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I respect my mother, because I don't want to have to deal with him if I don't. And he taught me how to respect women, how to treat them, how to make sure that no one, disrespects your wife in a way. Don't let your children disrespect your wife, let alone anyone else, but also how to care for my wife, and how to be able to be there for her, and how to understand that her being, the weaker vessel, as the word says, is that, you are there, you're her protector, you're her provider, and the children as well. And so all that goes into why, or what motivates and inspires me. It's my family. I'm like, because I saw how he took care of us. I'm like, I want to take care of my family that same way. I want to be that husband. I want to be that father. I want to be that leader. I want to be their example of what, not just what hard work does, but having a vision and goals and going for them and not letting things stop you.
That's so good. That is so good. I really hope people are hearing the heart in what you're saying, DK, because that, I can see that the fingerprints of that part of your life that have spread so far. I mean, not just in your own family and in your own work, but now as a youth mentor. Like, I see that you paying forward what was invested in you. You're not just going to be a repository of what your dad gave you. You're going to be a conduit of it. You're going to share it with your own family first, and then you're going to share it with other people around you for their benefit. I love that. I think that's exactly what every follower of Jesus is called to do.
Mm. Amen. Amen.
So you coach on parenting. I believe that the best thing as parents we can give our kids is a healthy, strong marriage. What is the secret to a great, healthy, strong marriage?
Oh, the secret to a healthy, strong marriage is communication, communication, and more communication. Now I know the men out there are like, oh, no, no. But so I'm gonna help the men real quick. So men, husbands, when you listen to your wife, and now listen, hearing and listening are two different things. You can hear her, and what that means is it's going in one ear and out the other. I hear you, but when you're listening, you are retaining the information that she's saying to you, and you are processing it, and it is going in one ear and staying in and not leaking out the other.
Yeah.
So when you listen to your wife, that goes a long way. Now, those of us who are married, goes a long way in intimacy, goes a long way in other areas of your life. So listening is very important. Communication. So not just her communicating to you, but you communicating with her. Well, me and my wife, before we got married, we communicated and talked about everything as far as marriage that we could think of. That includes sex, children, their names, what our marriage is going to be. We actually even put together this declaration that we had said that the D word would never be a part of our marriage. That D word is divorce. And we were like, this is the declaration. This is not going to be a part of our language, a part of our lives. And we talked about how we wanted to raise the children and where we wanted to live and what she wanted to do professionally and what I wanted to do. And I think when you communicate that way, it allows you to see what path you guys are going to be on. Because when you become married, you become one. You are not, it's not, well, it's my journey and your journey. No, we're journeying together. Now, I'm not going to tell anyone that you have to have joint bank accounts. You do what's best for your marriage. But I will say this. Money is a very important topic. You need to talk about it. I became fearful of talking about money with my wife because she was better at managing it than I was. Now, I knew how to make $20 work for a week, but when I was living at home with my parents, that was manageable because I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car. Well, I didn't have a car payment. I had a cell phone, but I didn't have a mortgage. So I was like, hey, I got somewhere to live. I'm good. When that mortgage came in, that's a whole different story. Now you got to be like, hey, you don't pay that mortgage, that's going to be a problem. And so she was better at managing money than I was. So she's the CFO of the house. That's what she is. I'm the CEO. I just make sure things keep running. She makes sure things stay in order and that we're not, living above our means and we're not, spending too much money. So communication is the secret to a great marriage. And that right there will transcend into everything else. You have to communicate, both men and women. And I know men, we're not that detailed and we kind of have yes and no answers and we're real quick and fast with it. And our wives, they want a little more detail. So a little quick nugget for you. Be intentional about giving her more detail. That will go a long way for you in your marriage. And don't forget, it's not happy wife, happy life. It's happy spouse, happy house.
So good. I hope everybody listening wrote that down. That's helpful, that's practical, and it's actionable today. So good, man. What do you think the best thing about being a parent is?
The best thing about being a parent is watching your children become. Watching them become who they're going to be. Watching their characteristics change, their character, their attitude, their demeanor, how they talk. My son's in middle school. His voice hasn't changed yet, but it's in that middle stage where it's like, hey, it's going that way. I'm like, you're slowly becoming a young man. My daughter, who is a split image of me, and character. She's just all over the place. And it's like, you can't pinpoint really what she wants to do, but when she gets her mind on something, she goes forward like full force. But it's good to see how even when they interact with each other or interact with us or their friends at school, you start seeing how they're changing. And you're like, wow, like they're becoming more than what they were when they were 3 and 4 and 5 years old. You know, they're now, you know, my son's entering into the teenage stage and my daughter's in her last year of elementary school. And it's like, you're seeing, man, kindergarten to 5th grade was a whole different person, you know, or my son, like 5th grade to 7th grade, that was a whole different boy, you know? And so it's good to see them start becoming, and you start also seeing how what you teach them and how what you train them, they start to retain it. Just today, actually, I was going to go pick up something for my wife for the business, and I brought them with me. And I said, look, I'm going to go pick this up out of the store real quick, be right back. I mean, literally a walk across the parking lot and back. So I got the vehicle's still running. Like it's a nice little complex, nobody really there. So I got the car, I walk away. I get back and the door's locked. And I'm like, hey, I locked the door. And my son, I'm like, he locked the door and I didn't tell him to. I was like, that's him growing up. He understood that, hey, I'm locking the door because I'm thinking safety first. I got me and my sister in here. My father is only 100 yards away, but I'm not playing that.
That's good.
Like, he locked the door. I said, look, I appreciate you locking the door, son. I'm very proud of you. He's like, oh, no problem, Dad. And I'm like, see, that small moment is me saying, wow, like he's watched me enough to know I need to be a protector right now. He's not here. It's now my job to protect my sister. And that went a long way with me. I'm like, wow, that was a wow factor for me today. So watching them grow and become, that's a beautiful thing about being a parent.
You know what I love about that story? You saw and you celebrated the win. You identified it and you celebrated it.
Yeah.
And you encouraged him in that. You know how far that goes in leadership? When we stop, we identify, and we celebrate the win with somebody that we're leading, whether it's your family, whether it is somebody on your team at work.
Yeah.
Stop, pause. Hey, you know what? That was amazing. Way to go. Yeah. Great job. I love what Truett Cathy used to say, the founder of Chick-fil-A. He'd say, you know, how you can tell if somebody needs encouragement? If they're breathing.
Doesn't get any simpler than that.
I mean, it's pretty clear. And that's what I heard there. That's what I heard. You know, you saw, you identified, and you encouraged. And I love that. And I think that's something that every person listening can take and, again, apply right now, today. Who can you encourage? I promise, if you look for it, you'll find it. You're a leader. You have led in numerous contexts. I'm curious, every leader that I talk to is a reader, and they love to learn. What is a book that has made an impact on your life?
Oh, man. There's so many. But the one I can say that made the biggest impact on my life was The Power of the Subconscious Mind. That was a book that changed the trajectory of my life. I read the book. I actually read it twice. And because I had to read it twice because I had to take notes. Like I missed stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this book is really good. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I wonder if the guy that wrote this book, I'm like, was he a believer? I'm like, because a lot of this sounds very, very like heaven-like. I'm like, man. But that was the book that changed my life. It allowed me to really dig deep into my subconscious mind because I kept trying to work from the conscious one. And even though I knew the subconscious was there, I didn't know how to let it work for me. So when I started realizing that the subconscious mind doesn't know right from wrong, it just says, hey, my thought is, I don't have enough money. Subconscious says, okay. And then it creates more lack. But if I say, all right, I don't have enough, but what can I do to get more? Subconscious says, okay, let's create other ways to get more. And it starts speaking to you. Now, this is not all about getting more money. I'm just saying for life in general, this is why Prima Mind Inc., our tagline is think and speak and achieve it.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about, you eventually will say. And eventually, whatever you say, you will eventually do.
Yep.
So if it's positive or negative, that's going to be your outcome. And the power of the subconscious mind it gave me a mind shift after reading the first chapter, which sounds like, I know it sounds cliche. I'm like, but literally I was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong like the whole time. And so it allowed me to start allowing my subconscious mind to work for me and to bring about positive outcomes in my life daily, like daily wins in my life, no matter how small or how big it was, just daily wins. And for me, at the end of the day, if you can count up your wins that are bigger than your losses or your learning experiences, like that's a win for the day. If you count those up at the end of the year, you will see that your record will be 259 and 40 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good win percentage, So that book is the one that changed my life for forever. It will change my life.
I love that. Is there a quote that has inspired you in life?
It is. It's simple. It's one that we've all heard, and you guys can laugh at me if you want to. That's just fine. It is simply just do it.
Nike.
Just do it.
I love it.
That has been the thing that me being a person that thinks in the future, I'm always thinking 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not living in that space, but I'm always thinking in that space. Right. But I also have to learn to be present. My wife says, hey, I need you to be present right now. Just be present. Let's talk about today and this week. I'm like, all right, I got you. So she's the present one. I'm the future one. And that helps us to be one.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I have learned that just do it is, okay, no matter how big the vision is, one way or another, either you're going to do it or you're not. And if you don't do it, you're going to look back and say, I should have did that. I should have did that. So now I'm just like, you know what? Just do it. Then if it's meant to be and happen, it will. And if it's not, he's got something bigger and better.
Yeah, he does. If you could share one piece of advice as we wrap up with the leaders who are listening to this today, what would that be? Wow.
There are so many things that I've said on other podcasts, but today I think what I will say is that allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to fail. And when I say fail, I'm not saying to go out there and be like, all right, where can I fail today? Like, don't go looking for failure. Don't go looking for it. I'm not saying that. I have the mindset to win. Yes. Don't go looking for failure, but allow yourself to fail. And when I say that means even when you've done your best and it wasn't enough, just say, you know what? I did my best. All that I had, it didn't work out, or it didn't happen the way I wanted it to, or whatever the situation is. But allow yourself to fail and then go back and say, okay, what happened? What can I do better? On top of that, when you allow yourself to fail, ask a trusted individual to help you analyze what happened. Because if you keep trying to do it on your own, you will continue to fail. We were not meant to be loners. This is why Elohim created Adam and then Eve. He was not meant to be alone.
That's right.
So allow yourself to fail. Have a trusted individual or individuals, small. It shouldn't be any more than 3. Because too many, that's just too many voices. And like, I don't need that. I need 2 or 3. And if you just have one, then let it be one. Trust the individual that's going to say, all right, let's analyze it. Let's go through this. Let's see whether it's a mentor, a coach, a best friend, someone in your circle, that tight-knit circle, and learn from those mistakes. But allow yourself to fail. Embrace it. Let it be a part of the journey. That's part of your story. That's really the story everybody wants to hear. They don't want to hear the successes because that's like automatic. But they want to see, how far in the dirt were you before you started climbing that mountain and conquered it? Because, comebacks are always great stories. if you're always winning, everyone's like, oh, you won again. Oh, good for you. You know?
Yeah.
But when you're down in the dumps and you come out and you conquer, people are like, yes, I can do it too. So yes, that's my message today.
That's so good. Thank you for being so generous with your wisdom and your insight that you have picked up along the way and sharing that so freely.
Yeah.
That's such a gift. I know people are going to want to stay connected with you. So what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, there are several ways. Number one, you can reach me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. Those are the top two, and LinkedIn as well. So on Facebook, you can type my name in the search and find me. I'm the only Tsombawi Knibye Jr. on Facebook. Now, there's three of us, my father, myself, and my son, but my father and my son are not on social media. And they're really not on the internet unless you type their names. And my son definitely only because he's in school. But I'm really the only one active on social media. So you can type my name in there, or just at TK Billionaire is my at name on there. Instagram is the same thing. It's at TK.billionaire. And then LinkedIn is just my name. Type it in. I'm pretty sure we'll have the notes here that William will have. I'm not going to spell it out for you, but he'll have it in the notes. Yep. Search me there. And then my website is simply Tsombawi.com. You can get with me there as well. And I would love to get to talk with you guys. You know, if you're looking for someone to, you know, be a youth mentor, a parenting coach, or anything of those services that I offer, feel free to contact me. I would love to be able to be of assistance. And those are the best ways to get in contact with me, is through those social media and my website.
Perfect. And we will have all those links in the notes so people can follow and connect with you and continue to learn.
Yeah.
Thank you. It has just been an honor and a privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you, William. And I appreciate it. And hopefully this won't be the last time.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I have a couple of requests for you. I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to find this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach who can help you to intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. And stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.